Welcome to Sode of Sittin Courtside. Today is it's Friday, guys. It's actually Valentine's Day. So I don't think we've ever had a Valentine's Day episode. Fun fact. But I think we should start a new tradition, Kyle.
Okay,
Should we
we're doing
kiss?
it. Oh, we're gonna kiss on the camera right now. Okay,
No.
perfect.
No, but it is a Valentine's Day episode. I hope everyone's enjoying their loved one or ones. I don't know. I don't know if you guys are Mormons. Do your thing. But we do love college basketball. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So Kyle, tell them what we're doing.
All right, so we mentioned it many times last podcast. There was a podcast that never got heard, but was absolutely fantastic. I got more feedback about wanting to hear about that podcast afterwards. So
Yeah.
what we're going to do today is we're going to basically take the outline that I had for that podcast. I revamped it with all the stuff that's happened over the last week, and we're going to do it again or do a similar podcast today. So it's going to be a bracketology style, only a lot more up to date. And if you watch college basketball over the weekend, or even since our last podcast, you know there's been a ton of change in what would have been bracketology from last week. So we have a lot of new things in what a similar style podcast would be from the one that nobody heard. But we're going to use the bigger sites, ESPN and CBS, as the bracketology. I looked at Athletic today. They hadn't updated it since last week, so I did not think it would be a good thing to use.
Yeah.
But we're going to take a look and kind of assess what we think compared to their seeding, give predictions on these teams, and then give a feel of what we think might these teams might settle in come bracket time. And then at the end, of course, we'll preview the weekend, but we got to go pretty quick because these are kind of open and long-ended questions.
Mhm.
So here we go. Five
Here we
burning
go.
questions for about bracketology. Let's talk about what everybody loves to talk about come college basketball March when nobody's really watching, everyone's tuning in. They want to talk about the bubble. Well, yes, everybody likes to talk about that, but I think this is the worst bubble ever. But let's talk about four teams that both CBS and ESPN have either in the first four in or the first four out. That is Georgia, San Diego State, Arkansas, and BYU. Of those four, who do you like the most, and what gives them the best chance to make it, in your opinion?
Yep. I want to preface, we did this exact same question last time. There are a couple more teams in it. I still stand by my original selection, so you guys are going to get to hear part of the podcast you never heard. I do like SMU still. However, given the question, I'm going BYU for all the reasons you highlighted the last time. They're a top 35 team in Ken Palm. They only have two games left, Arizona, Iowa State, a relatively easy schedule. If we look at
Yep.
the other teams, you get
Yep.
the other ones that can maybe make a case are the SEC teams. Both of them are catching 2 to 4 losses between now and the end of conference tournament. I don't like either of them, to be quite frank. So we'll take BYU, but for everyone that's keeping note, previous podcast, I did like SMU as well.
Yep. Yeah, so in the previous podcast, we had a lot of ACC teams on here. We had like 4 out of 6
Yes.
teams for ACC.
Yes.
We didn't. I tried to get away from that here. I wanted to throw in like more like established teams, Georgia, San
Yeah.
Diego State, Arkansas. They've actually done stuff this year. But like you said, Georgia and Arkansas, I think they're both going to lose their next 3 games. They're playing
Yeah.
outrageously good teams. They both play Missouri. They both play Auburn, and then their other opponent in the three is a top 10 team on the road. So I think they both fall out of even contention, both Arkansas and Georgia. So I came down to both San Diego State and BYU. I would love to pick San Diego State, but again, just like I did on the other podcast, I'm going to take BYU here. They're just so much higher in both net and Ken Palm already than San Diego State, and they have so much more they can do to help it and a lot less to hurt it because they don't play bad teams, unlike San Diego State. San Diego State already has 3 losses in quad
Mhm.
two and three combined, and half their wins are against quad four. So I'm just going to back what BYU's already done to this point, even though I'd rather see San Diego State just because that's our Mountain West team, and they're a talented team too.
Yeah. I will say I like Georgia. I think Georgia is kind of in that same spot as Villanova last year, where like they have some quality wins. They've beaten some really good teams, but it's going to determine what the determining factor is going to be is are there more bid stealers in those one bid leagues that deter them from making it in? That's like what they're going to be playing with that, I feel like, regardless of what their ending record is.
You know, and just let people know that haven't been tuning into Georgia too much. They started out the season 14-2 with wins over St. John's, Kentucky, and Oklahoma. Really good start to the season, but they've kind of fallen apart
Yeah.
lately in SEC play. Only 2-7 their last 9 games, and again, they have Missouri, Auburn, and Florida as their next 3 games. So All right, next up on the second question, currently have some big boys in terms of typical college basketball teams. Each year in, year out, you always find them in the top four like lines. These are teams that, you're just used to always being good. But if you haven't really been paying attention to college basketball, it might actually shock you if you look at the tournament bracket and see these teams are either anywhere from like a 7 or 8 seed all the way to like a 10 or 11 seed. So of these teams, who do you think can make a run and avoid the 1 or 2 seed if they win that first round matchup? So right now we got UConn currently being projected as an 8 seed, Ohio State anywhere from a 9 to a 10, Gonzaga 8 to 9, and Baylor 9 to 10. Of those four teams, who do you have the most faith to get out of that like no man's land of the 8,
Mhm.
9, 10, and get to like maybe a 5 or so to get them out of the 1 or 2 seed second
Yep.
round?
I'm going to say this now. I don't want to see Baylor in the tournament. They're a team that will make it in that we always talk about, like why.
Yeah,
I want to throw that out there
yeah,
now. I went with the
yeah,
same team that I went with last time for all the same reasons. So I'm going to go UConn.
yeah,
They have the farthest to fall, quite frankly. So they're the team that obviously has the shortest gap to get to the 6-7 line. Also, they are the back-to-back defending champions. I feel like they're going to get a little preferential treatment because of that, where there's going to be almost like a potential piece to it, not what they've
yeah,
done. They don't really have anything left per
yeah.
se. Like
Hmm.
it's going to be weird, but the Big East tournament is the Big East tournament. There's a lot of teams where they can get some quality wins, maybe not big wins, but quality wins. So I'll take
Yeah.
UConn as the team I have the most faith in.
Yeah. So this on our last podcast, or the podcast we did before, we actually included a couple other teams that actually made a little bit of a rise, so I had to remove them from here. But I immediately go to Ken Palm on a lot of this stuff. If you were just going straight off there, you would go with Gonzaga easily here because they're a top 11 team in Ken Palm, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. They haven't beat a quad one team since November, and those quad one teams are San Diego State and Baylor. Two teams we have not really backed already in this podcast.
Yeah, not going well for
Uh,
you.
and as you mentioned, I'm not going to back Baylor either. Incredibly inconsistent, 6-6 in their last 12, and they have only one win against the tournament team since November 22nd. So those two teams I rolled out pretty quickly. It was down to UConn and Ohio State. If you know me from this podcast, not a big Ohio State guy, so I'm also going to go with UConn. And I think that's because I look at their upcoming schedule. They have a minimum, I think, of 6-1 in their last seven because they only have like two tough games and one of them's at home. So I think they'll win at least five. I'm predicting six though out of those seven. That gets them to 23-8, back-to-back champions. I think they'll get a nice seed after that, especially ending the season 9-2 with 4 or 5 quad one wins. Also, though, Liam McNeely's back for them. In his first two games back in over a month, he's had a double-double in each. He's averaging 34 points and 11 rebounds. They're a whole different team with him. And again, the Big East is down, so I think they have a little bit of a run here. Just when I wanted to kind of give up on UConn,
Yeah.
they're pulling me right back in.
Yeah, and Hurley's been a little extra cocky too since he came back.
He
So,
certainly has, certainly has. All right, third question is three teams that CBS and ESPN have either a 3 or a 4 seed in their projected brackets lost this week to non-tournament teams. That includes Michigan State, who lost to IU, Arizona, who lost to Kansas State, and St. John's, who lost to Villanova. Their current odds to make the Final Four are Michigan State at plus 950, Arizona at plus 1,000, and St. John's at 650. I'm going to go first on this one. I'm going to pick who
ooh,
I think's going to be out of these three teams that had the best chance, in my opinion, to make the Final Four if I had to bet today on Valentine's Day. And I'm going to stick with my guns. The same team that I gave out on the other podcast. I'm going to stick
uh-huh.
with Arizona. Yes, they tripped up. It's a tough road game at Kansas State. That's Kansas State just beat Kansas. They just beat Arizona. It's just a tough place to play. They're actually top 20 on both ends of the ball. They have 7 quad one wins, which is only one less than both Michigan State and St. John's have combined. And in their last 15, they're 13-2, and 5 of those wins are against tournament teams. So I'm sticking with Arizona. It gives you the longest odds of the three. And I actually did place this bet in the middle of the day today. So I am all in on them going with Arizona to
Okay.
make the Final Four.
Wow. So like you need to probably wear Arizona gear.
I know,
Just
right? My boy Caleb Love, too, my favorite player in all of college basketball.
that would be classic. All right. I tried every which way to not feel like I was just following the bandwagon here, but we ride. You get all the credit in the world for this pick, but we ride. I'm also going Arizona in
Okay,
this
okay.
instance. I actually think St. John's, you get almost no value with those odds realistically
Mhm.
based on where they're at. Like they're at the highest I feel like they're going to be at this point. So you're getting nothing for them. Um, to your point though, K-State has already beat some really quality teams. Like they're a quality basketball team. Maybe that might be a tournament team, but they're a quality basketball team. So I don't hold
Mhm.
anything against Arizona for losing to them. I'm also still a little concerned about the Big East. Like I like St. John's, but I don't know if all these wins they're getting are what we think they are.
Yeah.
Also, we talked about it last episode. They're kind of sporadic. They play kind of a street ball style. I don't really want to put my name on a bet for a team that relies on havoc to make it all the way
Hmm.
to the Final Four.
Yeah.
They just they're right there for me between like extremely good on defense, but a little chaotic at times to where things go awry against in the Elite Eight, right? Like you got to be pretty
Hmm.
disciplined at that point. I don't know if I trust them at that point, right? So
Yeah.
Arizona is a team I can trust because they play a very comfortable style of basketball that they've always played for 3 years. So I'm
Yeah.
going Arizona for that instance, but I do like St. John's. Just I can't put myself to make the move on them.
Yeah, I like it. And just to kind of piggyback on the Kansas State stuff, they might not make the tournament, but they're going to make probably a case for it because they were at one point in this season 7-11, and they've won their last 6 games, and 5 of those 6 are against quad one teams, and they have one, two, three,
Jeez.
4 quad one games still to come. Like if they can actually keep rolling like they are right now, I didn't give them
Yeah.
any credit. I just went straight with Arizona last time. I didn't even like really look into
Yeah.
Kansas State that much. So
Well, they keep wearing those god awful uniforms
the
where they wear
terrible uniform.
dark purple and light purple together. Like
Uh,
just pick one, dude. Just pick
yeah.
one.
I mean, in Kansas State, like outside of those quad one games, they have UCF, Colorado, and Arizona State also. Like I mean, they could pile up some wins here at the end of the year and actually like
Mhm.
be a bubble team. So,
I mean, maybe. Depends probably what they do in the Big East. The Big East, sorry, the Big 12. Sorry.
Big 12. All right. So the fourth question here. The committee always underseeds some of really good teams that we always talk about because these are teams we actually like. They're, of course, teams that are not always on marquee primetime TV. Of these current projections, and they'll probably only get worse because this is what the committee does. They find a way to put in those crappy Big Ten
Yep.
teams and move these guys down. These current projections from ESPN, I just used ESPN on this one because nobody agreed either way on these. Which seed is the most egregious of these 4 teams? Utah State as a 10 seed, St. Mary's as an 8 seed, Drake as an 11 seed, or Louisville as a 7?
Okay, I have strong feelings about all of these,
Yeah,
but I'm going with the one that I think makes the most sense, and that's got to be St. Mary's. Like how have they not got the Gonzaga treatment at this point? Like
yeah,
this is not like the first or even second year that they've showed up. They've been putting together these kind of seasons since we started the podcast 5 seasons
yeah.
ago, and even a
Hmm.
little bit before that. Like it's time to give them respect. An 8 seed, like come on.
Yeah,
Like that's ridiculous. And I'm telling you right now, they're gonna play Auburn or Alabama and scare the shit out of them. And everyone's going to be like, how the fuck did this team get an 8 seed? They need to be a 5 at
yeah,
worst, probably. At worst.
yep. You literally stole every point
Okay,
talking
well,
point I had.
this is how we do things.
But here's what I exactly had. I said Utah State is criminally underseeded here, but that's not even close to how ridiculous it is for St. Mary's. That's how I like worded this one. So just because
Okay.
these guys don't stay up and watch West Coast basketball is not their problem. It's been
Yeah.
happening for years. But as they're 4-2 against quad one teams, St. Mary's is. That's the same amount of quad one wins as Baylor, Oklahoma, Missouri, Louisville. They also beat Gonzaga, but Gonzaga is a similar seed in this. Gonzaga is like 11 in Ken Palm. St. Mary's is 21 in Ken Palm. St. Mary's is higher than Michigan State, who has one more quad one win than them, but 3 more quad one losses. I don't understand how they're pushed back this far. If Gonzaga has 4 quad one wins any season, they're always like a 1 or 2 seed. So I have no idea how St. Mary's is an 8. And they only have basically Gonzaga left to improve their seeding. And
Yeah.
I think they already should be above Gonzaga. So I really don't know how they're going to get maybe as high, maybe higher than like a 7 or like the worst 6 seed. It's really just, they need to change how they're evaluating St.
Yeah.
Mary's.
I will also say so Drake's an 11. This is the one we can go off on too.
Hmm.
They have 2 losses to end the year in the Missouri Valley. Right? There's the Missouri Valley.
Yep. Yep. Hmm.
A conference that has gotten respect before.
Yep.
How do you not put them at like a 7? Like that
Yeah.
that makes sense as a 7 seed, not an 11.
Hmm.
Louisville is the one that could like maybe be kind of okay with at 7 because
Yeah.
I mean they've had some. I mean they lost to Oklahoma. ACC is not exactly what it usually is. Like okay, maybe you can maybe convince me 7 seed's fine, but the other
Yeah.
three is just murderous.
Yeah. And we didn't touch too much on Utah State, but they have lost or three games all season. One was at UC, or one was a home game against UC San Diego. We talked about them
Yeah,
extensively last
tremendous team,
podcast.
tremendous
By
team.
by two, they lost on the road in UNLV by one, and then they lost a home game. This is the one that probably the committee's going to hold against them. Lost by 19 points at home to New Mexico, but New Mexico is the highest Ken Palm ranking team in all of the Mountain West. I mean, like it's just not fair that these teams get like held for their worst loss so much more than
Oh yeah.
like how we were just talking about the other team had. Or was it San Diego State had a quad three loss? It's like they have zero outside of quad one losses all season. So
Despicable.
yeah. All right. I thought this one would be fun. We kind of texted about it a little bit. This is one that changed a decent amount since
Yeah.
our the other podcast. With losses from Purdue, St. John's, Michigan State, and Arizona this week, and then a three-game losing streak from Iowa State in the last 2 weeks. I think it's kind of down to a big six to have a shot at
Yeah.
the one seed unless multiple teams fall apart. Those six in my mind are Auburn, Duke, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, and Houston. If you were forced to pick today, what are the four teams that are going to get the one seed? And what is the order? And if I'm wrong and you think there's another team that can pop into that top six, who is it? But what's your order for the one seeds if you had to pick today?
Okay. So at one
Based on like
point,
the remaining schedule and
yeah, at
stuff
one
too.
point I said that St. John's is a team that could catapult themselves into the conversation. They lost outright to Villanova. They're
Yep.
out. That's not going
Yep.
to happen for them now. So for that instance, essentially where I'm getting at is regardless of results at this point, I think Auburn and Alabama firmly on the one line. I'm going to put them in order though of Auburn, Alabama. I
Okay.
actually, even if Alabama wins this weekend, I don't think that really should change a lot. If anything, it just more or less confirms Bama probably as the two, as
Yeah.
opposed to being a fringe spot, which we were at about a week ago. So
Hmm.
1, 2 for them. I'll put Duke in the three. Again, I think they're allowed to have that one loss, but they can't lose anymore. They have to win the ACC tournament if they want to be the third spot. I still think even if they lost somewhere in there, because there's not really anything left, they kind of are going to have to get a
Yeah.
one seed. And then I already talked about this. I just don't think there's enough wins left in the SEC to support 3 1 seeds from the SEC. So Tennessee, Florida out. If I have to pick one that could do it, though, it would be Florida because they have enough of a schedule, but they got basically all on the road, right? So they had their road win Auburn. They're going to do a road game at Alabama, a road game at Texas A&M, and then basically win the SEC tournament.
Hmm.
That's the only way I see that being possible. So I'm going with Houston
Yeah.
because they are the team that would make the most sense after that, obviously. And again, we talked about them. Schedule's kind of light. I think they also only have 2 games left. There's not really anybody up in that league anymore. Like Kansas is floundering, Iowa State is floundering, Arizona would be essentially up there, or maybe a Texas Tech. But even then, you're probably looking at Houston if they were to lose to one of those teams, it'd be in the championship game. So I'll put Houston as that last spot, with Florida being my number 1, 2 seed.
So we have the same four. I also put Houston in there just because I don't believe a third SEC team can actually get that one seed. Because, as I mentioned the other time, I don't believe all four of those teams are going to be the final four of the SEC tournament. I think one of them will lose. And
Yeah,
just looking at their schedules, like Alabama, I think they're locked in as a one seed, but they still have Auburn twice, Florida, Tennessee,
right.
Kentucky, and Missouri. It's just absolutely crazy, some of these schedules. So one of the four, at least one of the four of the SEC teams is going on a losing streak, knock themselves out of it. I think it's either Florida or Tennessee. So I also went Auburn. I went with Duke currently. I'll project them at the two. But if Bama just gets through that gauntlet, even if it's 5-2, I still think they'll hop Duke. It's just Duke
Yeah.
doesn't have the quad one wins like by the time of the end of the season to actually stay above Alabama. So right now I have Duke and because I think Bama could actually lose some of these games, but if they win against Auburn, switch that immediately to be Auburn, Bama easily 1-2, and then Duke three. The reason I went with Houston, again, like you were saying, no third SEC team, but I also think they're just absolutely rolling right now. They're 13-1 their last 14 games. The only problem with Houston, though, Their schedule actually is a little tricky because they go on the road to Arizona this
Mhm.
weekend. Then
Yes.
they're on the road to Arizona State. That'll be a win. But then they got home against Iowa State and on the road against Texas Tech before going a home game against Kansas. So they do have a hard schedule too. But I think the Big 12 is a little more fluky than the SEC, obviously. And so I think actually Houston gets through that gauntlet and it'll look really good. They'll have a lot of quad one wins. And the committee will definitely rather give the second best conference champion a one seed over having the third best team in the SEC. So
Yeah.
I'll also take Houston, but these scheduled for everybody but Duke of these six teams is absolutely insane.
Yeah. I will say, I know you love Arizona. I love Texas Tech. Think for your advantage, they do play a different style of basketball that can frustrate Houston. I think with what you just laid out for Houston, though, they're a better version of Texas Tech
Yeah.
and
Mm.
Iowa State, which replaces
Yeah.
their two toughest games, not called Arizona. And so,
Yeah.
regardless, like they're, I think they win those games. If they lose one of them,
Mhm.
I think it's going to be a fluky one somewhere. It won't even be against the top team. It'll be,
It'd be like the trap game of like Arizona State and all in the
yeah,
middle of
yeah.
that.
Like I could literally could see them going to Arizona, playing in a bloodbath of a game, winning by like
Uh-huh.
one, and then go play
Yeah.
Arizona State, hanging out the weekend at Tempe and lose by like three in
Yeah.
a fluky game.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a trap game there, just right after Arizona on the road, right before Iowa State at home. So definitely a trap game.
Yeah.
But I mean, guys, this is an amazing final six to see who wins these four one seeds. Like the gauntlet of the schedules for five of the six of these teams is going to be so fun to watch throughout the rest of the year.
Yes.
All right, so that's our bracketology special. Hopefully, you guys liked it. Sorry, guys, didn't hear it on the first time, but it was even better this time. I
Yeah.
promise you.
You didn't get to hear all the ways that we were
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, and we're actually exactly a month out from
Yeah.
Selection Sunday. Unlike before, I said a month that time. I was like, it's actually 40 days. So we're actually a month out. So, but let's go ahead and give our updates. We haven't updated our courtside picks in a bit, our challenge here. So go ahead and give your record first.
Yep. I'm 145, 127, and three. That's 53.27%.
All right, and I'm 267, 230, and 1, and 6, which is 53% as well, but 0.57. So
Yeah.
for those doing math, we're 0.3 separate through like 4 months of the basketball season.
Also, kudos to Kyle because how many picks is that? Is that 498, 504, 504 picks. Good job, buddy.
And
Nowhere
we aren't
close.
even, we're not even at
Yeah.
conference tournament time or March Madness.
You might hit 1,000.
I think I will. I think I will.
It's going to be impressive.
All right. So what I thought we could do is we go through the weekend preview just because there's so many good games. I thought we could definitely pick the five biggest games on the slate. And then if
Yep.
you have any other picks or leans, if we have time, we'll go through those.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So a little bit of a rapid fire here. On Saturday, number 16, Wisconsin is at number seven, Purdue. Obviously, Purdue is coming off a loss
Yeah.
to Michigan. Wisconsin's on a roll right now, but they have not won a single road game against a ranked team all season. They're 0-4. Who do you got here? Wisconsin at Purdue.
I'm taking Purdue. It's a different team at home. That's a different environment at home against the top ranked team. Take Purdue every time.
And so when I put this one on here, I was like, man, there's no way Ken Palm will have this one like, a bucket or two. They have it at three right now. So I was like, okay, so if I see a three or a four when this line comes out, I will
Yeah.
definitely lay it with Purdue. So I'm
Yeah.
also going with Purdue. All right, the game I'm looking forward to the second most this weekend is number six, Houston at number 13, Arizona. It's a battle for the top spot in the Big 12. Houston has won all of their road games this season, but I think Arizona gets a giant win here, marking their third home win against a top 15 team at home since January 27th. So just like 2 weeks, this will be their third top 15 win at home if they do it. So I'm taking Arizona, which should be surprise to absolutely nobody here.
Yeah. Yeah. I will take Houston. I'm still sticking with my preseason national title pick, which now brings me to this, Kyle. Are you off the bandwagon? Are you all in on Arizona and just Duke? You're off Houston, like it was a fun
I think I
preseason
am.
pick, but you're done.
Yeah, I think I
Okay,
am.
it's
Yep,
fair. It's
yep,
fair.
I am. And my money's back behind them too, like behind Arizona now. I put that one down, so we got the
So, yeah, I
Duke
mean,
bet
yeah,
with
I guess
them
that's
too.
true.
So
It's true. You have more to gain. So
yeah. All right. Obviously, this is a game everyone's going to tune into. Number one, Auburn at number two, Alabama. Take it away. Who you got here?
I think you have to go with the best coach in the country.
Must Bus?
No, Must
Oh,
Bus
not
is
Must
it?
Bus. Yeah, that's
It's Nate
wrong
Oates.
guy.
It's your
Nate
guy.
Oates.
It's
Yeah.
your guy, Nate Oates. I think you go Alabama. I actually think right now they're the best team in the country
Over
the way they've
Bruce
been playing.
Pearl. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
well, I love the Pearl Boat, but I don't think he's the best coach in the country. Yeah, I take the old algebra guy, Nate Oates, Alabama. Like I said, I do think they're actually the best team in the country right now. I think the way they're playing, they're really hitting their stride now where they're almost hitting 100 points every game. Early in the season, they were kind of struggling. They like hit 90, then they do 81, then they do 95, then they do 83, and they're letting teams kind of play with them. They've gotten better at defense. I know Auburn can score in a flurry, especially if they start hitting from three, but I think being a rivalry game at home, big game on Saturday, I'll take Alabama.
And it's at a weird time too, isn't it? Right in the middle of the day
Yeah, it's
too
like
on
4 o'clock.
Saturday.
It's
Yeah,
like 4 o'clock.
yeah,
It's a weird time. Yeah.
yeah. So I thought you were going to go Auburn. I really did, but I'm
I'm
also going
sorry.
to make it 3 for 3 on Saturday with home teams. I'm taking Alabama. It's just going to be nuts there. And their last game that they lost, they've only lost one to Ole Miss. They haven't lost since then, but it's December 1st, their last loss
Yeah.
before that. Absolutely outrageous place to play on a Saturday. Again, weird time. And honestly, Auburn's offense has not been clicking since Broom got back. They are the number one team in the nation. They had the best resume, but they're not playing like the number one team in the nation.
Yes.
So I will also take Alabama. And Ken Palm has them as a 3 point underdog right now, Alabama. So I mean, maybe some
Interesting.
plus money on it.
Yeah. For anyone that also forgot this, I still keep this in the back of my mind. I can't decide if it's a good or a bad thing. Do you remember when they went to Houston and they had to turn the plane around because there was a dispute
Hmm.
between the players? I still
Yeah.
want to know what that was. Was it like they're so jacked up to play, or we have like a lot of immaturity on the team, right? And Pearl's been able to hide it.
The only thing about that though is I remember I was all in on Houston on
Yeah,
that
and they
game
got
and
their
they got
butt
beat.
smacked. I know. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't know how to take it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's move to Sunday. Number 20, Michigan at Ohio State. Obviously, Michigan coming off a huge win over Purdue. Ohio State, they're in the tournament right now. They're hovering around that 8-9 seed. I actually don't like either of these teams, but
Yeah.
I like Ohio State at home, and I hate Michigan on the road. So I'm going to take Ohio State here in what should be a pick 'em in this
Yeah, I
matchup.
hate this game so much. I will give you a pick. I'll tell you right now, I'm not betting this game.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
take Michigan, honestly, just because I feel like they're the better team. But Ohio State is a weird team because I actually do think when you say like the quote unquote any given Sunday, Ohio State legitimately can beat any team in the country any day of the week. It just depends how well they shoot the ball because
Mhm.
they sometimes will hit 60, 70% from three and bury you.
Yep. Mhm.
But I
Yep.
will go with Michigan as the just more consistent team.
Okay. Yeah, Ohio State just very, very weird team. Like they obviously crushed Washington in the last game. Then the game before that, Nebraska ran them off the court. Like
Yeah,
you
I
just do
said you
not
don't
know
know
what
what
you
you're getting.
yeah.
You don't know
You
what
have
you're getting
no
with them. That's
idea.
why I say that. Like they could literally go out, play Alabama, and win by 37 or lose by 50. And I
Yep.
wouldn't be
Mhm.
surprised by either
Yeah.
outcome.
All right, the last game on our slate before we give our other picks is Sunday, a little bit later in the day, number 24 Creighton at number 9 St. John's. Any shot Creighton, who also their streak ended, both St. John's
Yeah.
and Creighton streak ended. Do you give them any shot to go in? I think it's at Madison Square Garden for this one. So
Yeah. I think they'd have been a better spot if St. John's had not just lost.
yeah. Mhm.
I think them losing, that Patino's going to have them ready. I'll take St. John's at home in the Garden. It's also just that's a big game for anyone that plays basketball in general, just because it's the Garden. But St.
Yeah.
John's, they play there a lot, so I'll take them to win that game. Well, I think it'll be a good game though. Don't sleep on that game.
Yeah. I will also take St. John's to win, but just curious, this is why I put it on here. Right now, Ken Palm has them to win by 7. Would you actually lay 6 to 7 points with St. John's in this game?
No, I wouldn't. And I
Yeah, I
actually
would
probably
not.
will take the under because I guarantee they're going to try to throw that in there like at a 143.5 or something.
144 is what it's
Yeah,
currently projected as.
I I
Yeah.
tell you what, freaking call me Houdini.
Yeah. And their first game when they played each other on New Year's Eve, 57 to 56, Creighton won at home. So very
That's
low scoring in that
yeah.
one. All right. Do you have any other picks for the weekend?
I do. I have two leans for you.
Okay.
And then a lot of assumptions going to go into these things. So, 1 o'clock on Saturday, Vanderbilt at Tennessee. For anyone that remembers, Vanderbilt did beat Tennessee outright last time they played. I think that game's going to be closer than most think. I think most casuals think that game's going to be probably closer to 6 points. I think the line's going to close closer to 4. I'll take Tennessee in that instance.
Okay.
And then the other one I have on the list here, one I'm actually worried about. Saturday, 8 o'clock, Michigan State at Illinois. Michigan State's lost a lot lately. I wouldn't be shocked if Illinois is favored in that game, but I like them to win the game outright either way.
Yeah, I like this pick, so I like him definitely. Here we're going a little bit down the small school rabbit hole on this one, and
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
because I really, really want this team to make it. It's going to be Samford. They're on the road
Okay.
at
Yeah.
Wofford. Everybody knows Wofford's name. They kind of get a little boost because everyone knows them. Right now, it looks like Wofford is going to be a 1 or 2 point underdog at home against Samford. I'm going to take Samford to win on the road. They're in a bit of a rut right now, but I think they get it going. The thing that Wofford's really bad at is defense, and the only thing good Sanford's good at is offense. So I think they get out of their rut. They've lost two
Mhm.
in a row, but before that,
Yeah.
they were 14-2 in their last 16. So I think they get out of the rut, and what is close to a pick 'em. If not, you'll have to lay a few points. And then my other one was where did it go? Jacksonville State. I don't know if you guys are listening to this. I bet them on Thursday night. They're doing really well right now. Nobody cares about Jacksonville State,
No.
but they're actually leading their conference and they have won. Let me do this math real quick. Jacksonville State. They have won, if they win tonight, as it's currently going on, 11 in a row, and they're only going to be a 1 point favorite against Louisiana Tech. I'm definitely taking Jacksonville State. I think they're going to actually win the Conference USA, just how hot they are. So two games that you won't be tuning into at
Nope.
all. You'll just bet them, and then you'll look at your phone at the end and see if you won or not. But those are my two leans. Two road teams, yes, but they're two very good offensive teams on the road against teams that cannot keep up with them on offense. So those are my two picks. All right, so we'll be back next week. Not exactly sure what day we're recording, but we will figure that out and we'll post it up on social media. Check us out on Twitter. I'm at Kyle Cliffy. He's at Mingo Made One. Oh, we'll be making picks all weekend long, so we'll give you even more than what we just gave you on Saturday, Sunday, and Friday. There's not really much on Friday, but we'll give you more on Friday. We'll talk to you next week, and best of luck in your bets.
Love you guys.